All right, welcome everybody to episode 27 of the Strength Hammer podcast. Neil, how are you?
Hey now, I'm doing well.
Good, good. Dave isn't here. Matt, nope, not here. Cole, nope, not here. That's the sound of refreshment right there. No, I'm kidding. took a sip of beer. A toast to our comrades who are not here because I once again am doing that thing where I change everything up. Because I feel a shorter podcast weekly, yeah, you heard that right, weekly, um, is much more attainable and much more in the wheelhouse of what I think people would like. Neil, I asked to have you be the one come on with me because Matt and Cole do the Big M's Power Hour and they go long form. I think you and I, so we can get in, we can get out. We have the same mindset on a lot of things, and I'd like to see how we do as two hosts, and then see where this podcast will go from there.
I will say, even in my own podcast and YouTube watching and listening, I tend to start to fast forward where I never used to, and just try to get to the meat of episodes. So I am one for this type of format myself. So
See, I found myself the opposite. I like to listen because I have lots of friends who do content. I like to listen to like their hobby updates and all that sort of stuff at the beginning, and they get to the meat of the episode, and I'm usually I know what that is. And I turn it off. It's like no, I'm good. I know that subject. We'll see you next week, boys. Um, but yeah, no, I'm excited for this, and this isn't to say that you won't see anyone else ever on this podcast or on the channel. That crew of five is still the crew of five. We're just changing things up because I'm coming off a just about a 2 month. I took a content social media break where I was still posting things on occasion, but it was very when I felt like it without any rhyme or reason to kind of like recharge my batteries a bit. And during that time is whenever the thought process to do this type of podcast came to me, as well as doing it weekly. So I hope you guys are looking forward to it. If you are, make sure you're subscribed to the podcast feed. I'm pretty sure I'll put this up on YouTube without video, but yeah, no. So how's this new format gonna work? So we're gonna get on every week. We're gonna talk anywhere from 20 minutes to 45 minutes, no more than an hour ever. Just little bit of news that's going on, maybe in the Warhammer community, what we got going on, maybe personally, just a little bit, not like a huge hobby update, but just something, it's on our mind lately. And then I do want to start getting some like listener questions and like actually not even questions, listener stories, and tell me what you think. I'm throwing this at you off the cuff here, but I want listeners to, I'm gonna set up an email for them to write in stories of like what's the cool thing that happened to you this week in the hobby, like what was there a cool game, a great dice roll, or a moment of joy through social
I love
media.
that. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, because I mean, to be fair, if anyone wants to ask us questions, one, you don't need to be asking us questions, and two, if it's a question that maybe you want to ask because I'm a playtester or I'm on the TO team for GW, it means I probably can't answer it anyway, so I'm not going to. So let's make it fun instead of just
I can answer all the questions. You
oh,
just they just might not be helpful, but I'll answer any questions.
that's true. You could write in questions, and Nia will answer it to the best of his ability.
I can tinfoil hat. I can guess at things.
Oh,
All sorts of stuff. Yeah.
all right. Well, we'll
Mhm.
leave it open. So I'll get I'll get some by next episode next week. I'll make sure there's a way for people to leave stories or questions for Neil. We'll have a segment just for that. Or
Neil's query corner. There we go.
tell you what, for this episode, if you're listening now, leave a question for next week's episode in the comments of YouTube. Since this will be up on YouTube, then I guess I will put it up there. Um, and we'll use that for the time being. So, sound good?
Yeah.
Cool. So this week So big news in the Warhammer community scene. I'm not sure if have you been on board with this, Neil. Um, there's been a resurgence of a more it's a little bit of a sharper edge type game. It's not as well rounded, you might say. You
I'm
pick you picking up
I'm
on it?
interested.
Okay,
I do
okay.
not know what you're talking about.
Some content creators, they may be on this show right now, as well as a few others that this erstwhile duo have in
Oh,
your ears right now may have dragged into.
oh,
Uh,
I now see where you're going with this.
there we go. Um, I've been playing, and I guess I will say this too. If anyone's listening with kids, we're not gonna be vulgar, but swearing may happen, so apologize forthwith. But I've been playing a shit ton of Warhammer Fantasy Battles.
Yep, and I've been dragged in at a point, kicking and screaming. To eat a little bit of crow. I was on Big M's Power Hour
Hmm.
months and months ago, and they back when they were kind of talking about Warhammer: The Old World, and they asked, if I would ever be interested in going back and revisiting square bases, and I vehemently denied any interest in ever doing that ever again. And yet here I am with the beginnings of a high elf fantasy army, thanks to my friend Chuck over here, with some 3D printed models on the way to flush it out.
Did you not see
So
my message yesterday, Neil?
I did see it. I did see it.
Did you
I was at
understand
work
its
when I saw it. Yes.
okay. Did you understand its meaning though?
I don't know if I did.
So Neil Neil
Oh,
Neil Neil yelled at me. He said he would never let me give him any more models because it would be a life debt. So I went above him and I went to his lovely wife, got his address. Not that I don't have it somewhere in my phone because I've been to your
oh my
house.
God. She's
She loved it. I told her what was going on, and she loved the idea. So I came into possession of a bunch of old fantasy models. It that was actually happenstance. It wasn't actually tied to me getting back into it per se, but a good friend Dan, he moved away. He's down in Florida now. He's running a farm, living his best life. Kind of jealous of the farm thing, honestly. But points aside on that, he had a bunch of fantasy stuff because he was playing a little bit up here, and it was all like unopened, or it was open but it wasn't touched, And he's like, "Hey, I don't want this. What will you give me for it?" I was like, "You know what? I'll give you this much for it because it's." But if you sold it, it was one of those things. It's like if you break it down separately and sell it, you can make probably three times what I'm about to offer you. He's like, "What are you gonna do with this?" Like, I'm probably gonna give most of it to people who want to play games up here, which is what I've done. Um, one of that was the Island of Blood sets. There's a bunch of high
oh,
elves in there, and there may be an extra anointed because I recently did a Phoenix for the Steel City GT, and I had an extra
I,
Phoenix on foot. So Neil, coming your way probably by
wow.
Saturday.
Wow.
You're getting more high elves.
Well, thank you, sir. Yeah, well, they will be put to good use. So I gotta finish up the last three units of this Tau army, and then it's gonna be all fantasy, which is very odd to say,
It
especially 6, 7 years now past old world blowing up.
it is, and I don't want to say like we're not done with Age of Sigmar. Absolutely not.
No, no.
Yeah, Age of Sigmar is still great. I love it. I'm still highly involved with that game. Um, but I'm enjoying this nostalgia trip back so much. I've been painting high elves, as you've
Yep.
seen, Neil, this past couple weeks, and
Hmm.
playing games. Had a couple little mini tournaments.
Yep.
Um, yeah, it's just been fun. Like I will say this, it's been a little odd painting models in batch again, which is fine. That's what I'm used to.
Hmm.
Not a problem. Actually, Neil, when you get, I'm curious when you get to painting your high elves. Holding the square bases actually made my hand cramp up more than the round bases because you can't just twist your thumb and index finger to turn the model to get more pieces. You have to like shuffle it through because it's not. I don't know.
That's
It's not.
funny.
It's it's the weirdest thing to be like, huh? This sucks more.
It's funny is like I've been if anybody who's listened to the show for a while and has heard me talk about my forays into the hobby when I was younger, I did fantasy for a long, long, long time, and I can remember painting these things in batch format, and just because of the way I used to paint, oh wow, what a slog! that was. It was so I'm interested to see now that I'm a little older, a little wiser, and have a little bit have contrast paints at my disposal. Just how quickly I can kind of buzz through some of this stuff. So,
I
uh,
will say this, Neil. I'm not sure about the 3D sculpt ones that you're getting printed, but just the GW ones.
mhm.
I mean, I know I paint up quick, and you guys always make jokes about how quickly I can paint, which is fine. I can do it quickly, but the high elves, they're mostly just silver,
Oh yeah. The
and
first batch that you gave me, I took a metal base coat spray to right off the bat. So I'm like,
they're
guess what? Your armor's silver. Your armor is not blue. Your armor is not this or that. It is silver,
it's
and that's gonna
silver.
be that.
Yeah, it's honestly as easy as painting Stormcast.
Mhm.
So I mean that's a good thing. That's a good thing. But
Yep.
yeah, no, I have what, three more models left. I have a White Lion Chariot to paint. I have a Cauldron of Blood. Or
Can I tell you the White
oh,
Line
yeah,
Chariot is probably one of my favorite models of all time.
really?
So good.
See, I wish I would have recorded before then, because maybe I would have slipped that in there too. But I have I have one already, but this is just a second because I have a
Yeah.
White Lion list that has two in it because I've been enjoying the list building aspect again too. That was one of my favorite parts of fantasy battles. You getting down to
Yeah.
those last like 20 points, you're like, what do I do? Do I take the shield off the noble and give him a great weapon, or do
Mhm. I have um I have absolutely zero interest in making any kind of optimized army
hmm
for this. I think somebody in one of our chats was saying like, the good lists have been out now for a decade.
yeah, build
People know how to what the lists are, right? I have no interest in doing any of that. I'm just going to play the models I like to play, and that's going to be that.
Yeah, and I will say this, what I've noticed from playing a wide variety of people, because a lot of locals have gotten back on board, or really never jumped up the fantasy, but they just shifted to 40K, but had fantasy armies and have
Mhm.
brought it back out since I've shown interest again in it. Um,
Can I say something too,
oh
Chuck?
yeah,
Um, you are the biggest plastic crack dealer of all time, right? Because the first one's free with you, right?
oh
You're
yeah.
like sending off these free models to people, right? And they're like, yeah, okay, all right.
If
You get a little hooked and you get a little taste of it. And now all of a sudden there's this community building. I see what you're doing.
it's listen, I will fully admit this, and I have admitted this. It's not just with like Warhammer; it's with all of my friends. If you know me and all of a sudden I'm into something, guess what? Chances are you're gonna get into it too because I will find a way. If it's here's your first hit, just get that that little plastic going or what. And I said it's but like all my friends acknowledge that I'm a force of nature on the fact that you will get into whatever Chuck's into
Mhm.
somehow, some way, at least enough to have a conversation with him.
It's really incredible how you do it.
Well, hey, it's the gift of the Azure. Was that Marsh? Is it? Should we call it martial prowess or should we call it
There it is. Yeah.
speed of Surian? Like that's we're going a little farther back. I guess we should specify for the people who are listening and do understand the old hammer and haven't turned us off yet. We are playing 8th edition fantasy. Um,
Mhm.
that's what that's actually the only one I played.
Yeah.
Neil, I think did you play
I
before?
played I played fourth, sixth, seventh, and just a smattering of eighth before it went away.
Okay, I got in 8th literally when the High Elf book came out because I was slowly building my army. I was young and new, and then when I finally jumped in, the 8th edition High Elf book came out. The day I started playing with a painted army, that's a different story. I think we've explained that elsewhere. Maybe we'll do it again another time, but not on this. That would take forever.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I just played 8th, and then when the old world died, like as an elf player, I enjoyed the end times. I mean, I know gets upset about this guy named Matt Ward, but he did right by the elves. I can win games very well. Uh, but
I I think too. Some of my desire to or kind of what opened up the possibility for this to me is one of the things I loved about Age of Sigmar as it kind of came into being was just how simple it was
mhm,
to read the rules and everything. And these days, there's a little more complication to Age of
it
Sigmar. It feels like to me.
there is.
Um, so the the span is not as far as far as the rules go from one system to another system. I feel like at this point. So, um,
Yeah,
yeah, so it's a little easier for me to go. Okay, yeah, I'll pick up that 500 page rule book again. That's fine.
it's it's 114 pages. I've read it in a day when I was first getting really back into it before my first true real games going back. Uh, and it comes back quicker. What I will say is it's understand the basics of the flow of the game. You know, like you
Mhm.
charge first, then you move, how magic works again. And I don't think if you played Eighth Edition Fantasy, you didn't never really forgot how magic worked because magic didn't really get like a big overall. Magic got much simpler, which is fine. But I do like the dice game of the magic phase. But like
Mhm.
once you get the flow in, then you have your little Owl Blood rule book with you, or your big red book, whichever one you got, and you
Yeah.
play the game, and then just understand that your first 2-3 games are going to be 3+ hours with whoever you're playing with because you're going to
Oh yeah.
play encounter situation and go, huh, how the hell do we do this again? And then you go through your book and you look it up. But then I said after 5 games, I was fully back in the swing of it. Um, yeah, only time I had questions on a unit of something I did was whenever I brought something that had new things that I didn't use yet. So
Mhm.
oh, skirmish do again. I don't know. Let's look it up.
And when I'm playing a game of 40K, or even AOS, when I'm still trying to learn like a new version or whatever, I'll have 5 hour games.
Yeah. Oh
Just
yeah.
you're sitting there, you're talking with people, you're just enjoying the game, you're just kind of playing it, just for fun, really more than anything. So I'm not a I think every game of fantasy I ever played, because when I did play it, I played it fairly infrequently. I think every game was 5 hours. So
Yeah, which I say it's fine. Now, to me, it depends on my opponent. I've had games that go 2 hours. Had
mhm.
games go, standard 2 hours and 25. I had one last night. He's a local. Um, Not the quickest, but we had no rush anyway, so it went 3.5 hours. Was okay. Who cares? you know,
Yeah,
Especially
yeah.
last night I was playing dwarf, so like I just stand there and shot him to death. So
Oh, that's the
it was
best.
very easy for me. He's the one struggling and thinking and doing all this stuff.
That's why I play the Tau.
There you
Point
go.
and shoot.
Yep, yep. Point, shoot, go.
Yep.
Actually, what I have noticed too, for all the games I've played, is there isn't really that to the point you made earlier, where like all the lists are out there. Like, I mean, kudos, and I will say this: I re-listened to the old Garage Hammer episodes where they did book reviews of the armies I'm playing,
Yeah.
and great. David Whitetek's stuff is evergreen. They're great listen if you're playing Eighth Edition, you want to or you're getting back into it, and want to remember how it works as far as like
Mhm.
your army. Um, but no one's really pushing that. Like everyone's treating this more as like a historical game of sense because it technically is in a weird way.
Yeah.
It's a history of a fantasy setting,
Mhm.
but people are bringing what they want. Um, the only time I've had those like try hard moments, it's not necessarily people brought try hard lists or try hard like combos, but they're misremembering rules or trying to use like the best version of all the rules across all the editions they know because it's just mixed up in their head. It wasn't really like
Yeah.
and like that's not really a. I get there's people who play these games out there that have, like you said, like you played fourth and up. I've only played eighth,
Mhm.
so
Yeah.
I definitely have a different signal in my head when someone says something. I'm just like, I think that's wrong. Let's look that up. And they're like, oh no, I'm right. I'm like, 2 seconds. Let me look it up, and then you know,
Mhm.
you get it figured out, and they're just like, oh, I thought it's like, oh, that was sixth, or that was fifth, or that was fourth. It's like, but it's not an intentional thing. So I've had a fun time with all my games, whether I was running rampant or getting completely destroyed. Because I've had wild swings. I forgot how much this game can swing so quickly.
I will say that the one extremely disappointing thing of getting back into this is, if you would have had this moment of inspiration about a year and a half ago, I would not have getting rid of all my eighth. I've had two eighth edition fantasy books, a bunch of the battle tomes, um, whatever you call army books at that point, all sorts of crap that I gave away for free. I mean, basically for peanuts, which
Yeah.
the person I gave them away to, I'm sure, sold them for much more than what I gave them to.
What's it,
So,
Anthony?
but,
You should give him to Anthony.
so.
Did you give
But
them to Anthony? Is that what you did?
I
Okay.
did. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
don't give Anthony anything. He just sells stuff. I'm gonna call you out right here, right now, Anthony, if you're listening. All right. All right. You're a little shark. You just pounce. Don't do that.
oh
Stop that.
yeah,
It's
oh
not
yeah.
good for the community.
To
Stop
be
it.
fair, I was more than willing to get rid of it. I thought, man, I'm never using this ever
No, no, he
again.
took advantage of you. You gotta.
But along comes Chuck a year and a half later.
Well, to be fair, yeah, okay. No, we won't do that joke. The reason it's kind of hit me, uh, it's a weird twofold thing. One, having TO'd I've TO'd more than I've played in the past 2 years, legitimately.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
which is cool. I'm loving TOing. Like I said, I'm loving Age of Sigmar, but I finally had my first event of the year like 2 weeks ago. Steel City GT, and on the blog strengthhammer.net, you can look up the write up. Um, and going into it, I was not freaking out, but like I was stunned because I was like, what? How? I know how to make rules calls. Not that I don't get them wrong, I do. But then I correct myself and I learn, I grow, and that's what you do as TO, by the way. It's a secret. Um, but actually playing the game, I was like, what do I do?
Yeah.
Like, what kind of list do I bring? And then, and uh, like you said, the complexity has gone up in this edition. I won't lie, this is not my favorite edition. This is still a game I love, and I will play it anytime, anywhere, with anyone. But
Hmm.
I liked second edition better for Age of Sigmar.
I did as well. Yeah.
Um, with like I said, 3.0 brought great things. I like the
Yeah.
charge reactions are back. I actually like that miscast is back in. I wish it had more detriment.
Hmm.
Like, but that's more of like the fantasy thing. But like I like that there's a risk to casting magic because there's always been a risk for prayers. So it's a risk for magic too. Um,
Right. Hmm.
the other thing is I love grand strategies. I love having a goal for your army to go for on top of the game. I hate battle tactics.
Oh, me too.
And
Me too.
I'm a doc player, so I got the easy ones. I don't care.
Yeah.
I, d- I don't like that extra layer having to think through it. I don't like the stress it causes at the table.
Yeah.
Um, between
One of the reasons why I never played other games like 40K and everything is just like I can't keep all these rules straight in my head.
oh,
So to add like a whole nother game on top of something that I'd play, the it's just becoming too much. And so that's whenever I sit down to play a game of Third Ed right now, I'm like, okay, so I got these battle tactics, and I'm just kind of picking them on the fly
mhm.
because I'm not a great player. But if you go to a tournament and you're playing against some people who have it down to a science, and you're sitting there kind of like reading through them, figure out what to do, the game is pretty much lost at that point. That person is
it's
better than you.
no, it's.
So
I mean,
you know,
I did fairly well. I only dropped 3 battle tactics across the whole event, which is good in this current meta with the way the battle tactics are. Um,
yeah.
and I purposely took like to not have guaranteed Daughters of Cain ones either. So like I took the life takers instead of the heart render, so I actually had to roll for it was I took that, but that was more fun for me. I wasn't trying to win this event, but I can still do it. I can still understand it. It's just a matter of it's not a matter of doing it. It's a matter of it takes away the enjoyment of the game for me, having to do that. I would like there to be more tactical nuance through the core game system as opposed to the add-on layer. But other things I do like, like what's good, bad, this. I like that there's the seasons now. We had the monster season, now we have the infantry season.
Hmm.
I like that a lot. So, there's good and bad. The one thing I will say I do despise is reinforcement points. That's
Yeah.
that's one thing I will always never like. Because I like running my hordes of witch elves, and I know people now are saying, "Oh, Chuck, you could run 90 witch elves. You play Drachy Ganeth." It's like that's great, but I want to play Kraith.
Yeah. It's those, like, I don't know. So original Sigmar came out. One of the things that I have kind of beef with kind of that kind of stuff about is original Sigmar was built to like play whatever you want, right? Now, granted, that's the Wild Wild West days. That needed to be reined in
Yeah.
a little bit, but at the same time, it's and they have throughout editions tried. It seems like to me anyway to keep your ability to build an army the way you want to build it.
Hmm.
However, more and more, it seems to be becoming a little bit more restricted. Maybe it should, but your ability to kind of play whatever you want to play and then still be successful is becoming slimmer and slimmer and slimmer, right? Um,
Right.
and so that's
And
yeah,
and
and it happens right with games. So
right, and I think they could do a lot more by having different types of battle packs because that's how we get those additional tweaks to the game, like with
mhm,
the GHB. But I think right now people are so stuck in the mindset that the GHB is the only one to have set for a tournament,
mhm,
because they don't. I mean, to be fair, they don't. GW's not putting out any other tournament style battle packs
right.
anywhere else. If they did, if they're just like if they start making different ones, I think that would be neat. But like for now, it's like you have a narrative one, uh, and then you have the competitive one. But like if we had more of those, it might freshen up the scene a little bit. Like what if there's who knows? Regardless,
Anything in the world to keep it from when I go and I play a Nurgle army. This is the list I play, right?
yeah.
That's just I kind of start. I'd hate to see that, right? Like I don't want to play like four Nurgle armies in a tournament and then wind up playing the exact same army. Which actually, if you go back to old fantasy days, that's a lot of what you got,
Oh
right?
yeah,
If you
it
want,
is. And,
so
and like I said,
uh,
the way everything's going right now with Sigmar, I I'm not in fear of it, but I always like have that side eye at it. But
mhm,
the way things are going, like with some things not with Purple Sun being too powerful right now, other
mhm.
things, and people with good intentions wanting to be like, let's adjust this, let's adjust this. Like, okay, battle packs are a good way to adjust it, um, but I don't want comp. I don't want Swedish. Like, I saved Swedish comp back from the old fancy days just to read through it, and it's just, oh,
Oh yeah,
I
yeah.
never
I wouldn't.
I never want comp. I like different types of events. I never want comp. I don't want this group of the community saying like, oh, endless spells cost an extra 60 points. So like some events in the country have endless spells costing more. You go to other ones and it's
Ugh.
completely.
I
It's I
you know
I'm not afraid of that happening because I don't think we're there. But I was keeping an eye on it, and whenever time this type of stuff keeps going, it's just like it feels like it's a cycle for wargaming where it's like big blow, big blow, big blow, and it's gonna collapse eventually. It's we'll see.
But what I will say is, with the seasons and with the facts that they put out every 6 months and everything, there is much more opportunity to curb that and correct that than what there used to be.
Sure,
So I'm not too worried about it ever going completely that direction because they are able to hit a pause button a lot sooner than what they used to be able to. Um,
no, that's very very true. And like I said,
yeah.
I think we've gotten way off topic. We were gushing about our love for coming back to Warhammer Fantasy Battles.
Yeah.
This is all to say, while it's not our current favorite edition between Neil and I personally on Age of Sigmar, it's still a game we love. You'll see us at
Hmm.
events whenever we can, um,
Hmm.
and we're not going to stop playing this game or talking about that game, just because right now we're fixated on Warhammer Fantasy Battles. We're
Yep.
enjoying our nostalgia dive. Let us have it.
Hmm.
Come join us if you want.
Yep. Gonna rank and flank for a little while, and then we'll go back to some circles.
Yeah, I mean, listen. Eventually we'll probably be like, all right, I'm tired of playing your high elves, Chuck. Like, okay, and you don't want to play my other armies. Let me get my Dodgers cane back out. Like okay, and
It-
Neil, if you and I were to get together for a day, I would bring an Age of Sigmar and a fantasy army.
oh yeah.
Like we're
What are the
getting both in.
You're talking about your little kind of like a social media hiatus that you had there.
Hmm.
I've been kind of on a little bit of a hiatus in terms of running events since the last bars. I have not done much. A little bit of it is just life has gotten very crazy for me recently too, but
Fair.
I haven't touched any of that kind of stuff, and I've just been really enjoying just playing the occasional game, whether it's 40K, whether it's AOS, now possibly fantasy as well, if I can find games down here.
Yeah.
But that's the next thing. But it's been kind of nice. So yeah, there's just going to be a little bit more shaking it up for me. But now I feel like I can play more games and more of what I want to now that I'm kind of backing off a little bit from running as much of what I used to run.
Oh, yeah, no, I understand. Like I said, my first Age of Sigmar tournament of the year was in August, of the year. So I understand running the events is like to take up a lot of time. And I'm not really even doing uh, like a ton of back end work. That's like you're on like volunteer time for it to do your own event. Whereas this is like, I set aside time. They pay me all that sort of stuff. But
Yeah.
it just like when whether you're being flown across the country to run an event for somebody else or you're running it locally for yourself, like it's time. Time is the one
Mhm.
is the hardest part. So
Yeah.
that's 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 the struggle. But still, there's nothing more satisfying than seeing 100 plus people have a great event and have a great time.
Oh yeah.
So
Oh yeah.
I love it, and
It's a great payoff. It's a great payoff every time.
I cherish every event I get to run because I also know that I won't be doing it forever. At some point,
Hmm.
you know, at some point someone else, that's just life. At some point someone else will fill my shoes and I go do something else. It's just part of the cycle of life.
Hmm.
you know, just
Yep.
knocking on wood, I get a lot more years of run under me.
Yeah, I think that'll be fine. You'll have plenty of those in the future.
Yeah, yeah. But actually, I'm glad you brought up running events because there is an event I still run for myself every year, Neil. And it started out as a summer thing because COVID was happening and I wanted to play, so we played outside in my backyard and had a great time with 8 people, 8 people at the event. It was called the Tarathi Invitational. Neil, you were at that first one, correct?
I was. I was at the first one, finished second to last. Yeah.
It was. And then what about in the second one? Because I think you were at the second one as well last year.
Was at the second one. I was re-invited,
Hmm.
thankfully and luckily. And that one, I finished dead last. I acquired the Brick of Shame, which still is has returned to its birthplace. And
I'm sorry, I have to tell the story of the Brick of Shame real quick. The Brick of Shame. So when Neil was getting rid of his old fantasy stuff, he had some dark elves. So I got some witch elves from you,
Mhm.
metal witch elves, and I got a old metal cauldron of blood. So this was a custom job. So it was the old metal Avatar cauldron and the unit champions that ride atop of it, and then you had the new, I think it's the new cauldron wheels. It's attached to like it's a like a piece of balsa wood that you painted and made it look like an altar.
yes, can I just preface this with while I have spent an ungodly amount of money on this hobby, there has been times where I've had to cut some corners.
Yeah, I understand. We were all there at some point. Some people, it's not a problem.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, so I got that in my possession. I was painting Ideneth at the time too, or actually I was building it. My friend Sean McAfee, Brush for Hire, he painted it as commissioned for me, or I commissioned him, whatever. But so the Avatar became a a stand mount essentially for one of my sharks in my Ideneth army because I sprinkled old dark elf and high elf stuff all throughout the basing and bits of my Ideneth when I built it. It's just a perfect like the way that avatar is. Um, the wheels I threw my bits bin, and the girls riding atop I put in my witch elf units. Um, so it left me this brick, and as any good man does, if you have a piece of wood or screws or nuts or bolts, you throw it in your toolbox. You never know when you're going to need it, right? So that sat in my toolbox from whenever I bought it from you until a week before that event, the first event. And I dug it out, and the places where I like ripped stuff off, I just put like blood for the blood god or painted it black. I put Teyrathi's rune on it, and it became the Brick of Shame. So that's I just love telling the story of where that brick came from because it's technically a cauldron. It is technically a useless piece of wood, but it's a trophy
To
you
be
get for your.
fair, to be fair, that was a completely custom job.
Hmm.
It was painted with more than three colors, and it had freehand on it. So really, I would score max points for that.
You would, and I said, listen, one of the trophies for the Teyrathi Invitational forevermore is at the Brick of
Yeah.
Shame, and I'll be damned if people don't understand where that brick came from when they get it handed to
It's
them.
atrocious. If you ever have the misfortune to lose to me in this event, which I don't see ever happening, yeah, you will acquire the Brick of Shame.
So anyway, getting back on topic of running the event, we got some big news.
Oh, I can't wait.
There's three pieces of news. One, Tate Rathi Invitational is returning. That's 100% guaranteed. It's going to be in December again. It's kind of into being coming at December events due to my travels and other events that people like to travel to. So December, it's a nice chance to see all friends for Christmas too. Um, I know I'm talking this big event up, and I always just end up just bringing like the same local people. Sorry, it's my event. Do what I want. It's not that I don't like other people and I don't love this community, but I'm just like, who do I want to see before Christmas? My closest friends. So it's an event. It's an excuse to see that. So
So
one,
if you're listening to this and you want Chuck to make this event bigger, then you need to email Chuck, uh, send in just blast his channel, just do whatever you have to do. Twitter,
yep,
break down the walls.
just at me on Twitter, I guess. But actually, second news, they don't need to, Neil, because it is expanding this year.
Ooh.
It is expanding. I'm still planning on just being 1 day. There's a small chance it becomes a 2 day, but we're gonna plan it for 1 day first, and it's gonna have at least 10 people, 10 players.
All
Now,
right.
I have decided after the first event, I ran it because I had to keep it small for it was at my house because stuff that I won't get into. Um, so I had to keep it small because my wife would kill me if I had more than 8 people. So I just ran it because I didn't want to take a spot from somebody to come play because not everyone was playing games at that time since it was during all the lockdown stuff or like or well near the end of all of it, whatever.
Mhm.
But last year I played and I just damn it, I'm playing every year. This is my event. I'm playing in it.
Right? Yeah, absolutely.
So, third piece of news, and Cole McGinnigal, if you're listening, I want you to get in real close here, because you've been resistant to the temptations of the square bases that we have all within the Strength Hammer chat group been throwing at you. Well, throughout the Invitational this year is going to be Warhammer Fantasy Battles, because it's my event. I can do what I want.
And refresh my memory on who has to return if they come to one of your invitationals.
The winners and losers. Neil being the loser of last year,
Mm-hmm.
and Cole. Like I said, hope you were listening, buddy, because you were the winner. You have the belt. You got to return. So
which which means he has to create a fantasy army and have it fully painted by December.
he does he does. I mean now he has the option to bow out, to just hand the belt over in shame. But
Oof,
I don't
yeah,
think I don't think he will. I don't think he will.
that's a lifetime of ridicule for that. Yeah.
No, I'm gonna give I will give Cole some leeway here. He's getting
I
married.
won't.
Okay, I'll give him. I'll be good cop. You be bad cop. All right. I'll be good cop first here. Cole, I have 4 Warhammer Fantasy Battle armies. You can pick which one you want to play, and you can play it. You can borrow mine. I know you're getting married in October, but I will allow it for this event if that's what you'd like to do. However, Neil has some different views. Neil, what do you think? As
Cole, I know you're getting married as well, but she's aware that um, wargaming is in your blood and something that you do. So you're just going to have to make time for this. And she's got to know that you have to make time for this as well. Right. So I think that's the way you get off to a healthy start in your marriage is with understanding, right, and communication.
and
And I
laying
feel
down the law.
I'm laying down the law. I'm saying, listen here, woman. Um, I'm playing some fantasy battles. Is what's going to happen.
and
I'm
make
getting a fisheye right now, and it's amazing. Yeah,
and and
from
and
my wife.
and, and make sure you say please at the end
Yeah, and say please. Yeah,
and bring her
and
flowers home.
if she says fine, it's not fine. But
No, it's
beyond
not fun.
that, yeah, you got to make the time. You got to get there, and it's time. It's time to fold. It's time to let those walls
Is
crumble and
is
give in.
Neil? Would that be a grudge round one between you and Cole? Is that what I'm hearing?
Oh, I think it would have to be right.
Ooh, I'm gonna add that in right. Round one
That actually
grudges.
will be second time we've grudged in a Tybrathi Invitational, which 2 out of 3.
There you go. There you go. But it's all up in the air because you'll have more games under your belt by then than he will, I bet. He
So
might
what? So I'll have one more game under my
at least
belt.
one. We'll get a game in. You come out the night before, we'll get a game in.
Oh, absolutely.
But
No, I'll find some opponents for sure.
yeah, we'll make the time. We'll make the time. But yeah, no, I think we don't have any obviously any listener questions or stories right now, being the first episode back, episode 27. Because I'm just continuing the line, and we'll keep it going from there. You may see some cleanup, by the way, everybody, on the podcast feed. I did take some YouTube videos, rip the audio, and put it out on the feed. I'm not sure if I'm going to remove them. I think they just weren't labeled as a Strength Hammer episode. I might just call them something special or different so we can do like those random one-offs. But yeah, this will be up on the podcast feed. There might be some adjustments, as you can tell, or if you follow along with all my content. Fridays are the hobby update. I'm thinking this might be better to put on Saturday, which I don't want to have content Friday, Saturday, so I might move the hobby thing to Monday. We'll see. We'll see. There might be some flux, but you'll every week from me, you're gonna get a hobby update on the blog and this podcast for myself and Neil. So yeah, I think this calls an episode this time, Neil. We got a nice 40 minutes. We're right on time. We're doing good. Do you have any parting words for this week for everyone out there?
Well, I hope everybody listens to this podcast. I know that when I do this, I'm listening on my way to work most of the time. So 40 minutes pretty much is what gets me right into work. So,
There you
so
go.
if you're listening to this and you're not driving to work, it's a great time to do it.
And I'm just say don't fear the square bases. Happy hobbying out there, everybody, and stay Stormcast strong. We'll see you next week.
Mhm.